Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani.
And I'm Danielle.
And we're here for another morning. Hope that you're enjoying this morning. I know that many of you are on your way to work. It's drive time until you tune in. I guess on YouTube or Facebook. Hopefully you're not watching as you're driving, but if you're home drinking a cup of coffee, thanks for joining the conversation today. We're excited because there's a lot that we are doing. Now listen to me for a second. A number of you have gone through counseling. You've gone through a process and you realize you need something more. And so we have this amazing program called the Moving Forward program that really helps couples take their relationship to the next level, because it's a small community of other couples who are striving for the same thing. And so you get the chance to join us on Monday nights for some great training and dialogue. We have online modules. We have courses throughout the like marriage master classes that we do on a quarterly basis and some live events. So if you want to figure out how to do that with your relationship, check this out. Check this video out.
That's our Moving Forward program, folks. And I love that when people go through this program, they're always sending back notes and videos and just comments to say how much it has transformed their lives. I just got a Marco Polo the other day where somebody just said that they appreciate every bit that we've poured into it, that it has helped them, and they wouldn't actually be together at this moment if it wasn't for the program. So it's cool. It actually allows you, there's some self-pacing in there. It's a 6-module program that you can go through at your own pace. But also every week we're dialing in with you, we're talking to you, we're giving you powerful teachings, answering your questions, and really holding your hands through this process. Because when you're moving forward past pain, there's so many bumps in the road and curves, and you're not expecting it. You think that after the intensive or after the counseling session, you're feeling good, right? It's almost like after you work out, you have that euphoria. But then when you get back into the swing of life, there are ups and downs.
Absolutely.
That Moving Forward program keeps you moving forward. And that actually is the part that most couples are most afraid of. It's like, well, what happens after this? After this is the Moving Forward program.
There it is. So if you want to find out more information about the Moving Forward program, just go to couplesacademy.org and set up a discovery call. We would love to connect with you and share more about the program and show you how you can get started today. Well, listen, guys, we have a question from James Richards. And his question is, my wife told me that she's no longer in love with me, and I don't know what to do. How do I get to win her heart back again? That's what we're talking about on today's episode. So listen, stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, founders of Couples Academy, a private practice dedicated to saving marriages around the world.
We're not just recognized authorities on relationships. We're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
All right, right, guys, we're talking today. The topic for today is the 10 ways to fall back in love with your spouse, or to get your spouse to fall back in love with you. 2 days ago, we were talking about how so many of us are in loveless relationships, and we gave a number of signs. And because the questions were just coming, we decided to do a part 2. And so if you're in a loveless relationship, you need to know what to do about it. And listen, it takes a number of different things, right? It requires counseling. It requires pressing the reset button, the restart button on that relationship. But we also want to get into some practical, tactical things that can make a difference. And the reality is, one of these tips may work for you. A number of them in combination may work for you. And so that's what we want to talk about today. I think one of the biggest things that we did, and we've always encouraged couples to do, is to make a list of the 10 greatest moments that you've had. Sometimes you got to remind yourself of why you fell in love in the first place, what you were doing that brought about that connection that you two had.
Yeah.
Now,
no, I was going to say, you might find that you have an overflow of reasons to fall back in love when you go down memory lane and you reminisce on things.
That's right. And so think about it. When we came up with that list, what's interesting about that list is that we discovered that we had a secret sauce. When we wrote our 10 favorite moments, or our 10 most memorable moments, it had a lot to do with travel. We would travel to different locations in the country. We would travel to different locations outside of the country. And that's what we really, really enjoyed and was the most memorable for us. But the 10 greatest moments, it doesn't have to be about big, expensive, extravagant things. It could be that day that we walked around the park holding hands and began to dream. It could be the day that the first time I met your family, right? And I remember it was a holiday, it was Thanksgiving, and I met your family for the first time. That was a pivotal moment.
I don't even remember that moment.
See that? Because it was normal for you because you're around your family. Memorable for me because it was my first time. And so take the time, both of you individually, to write out a list of your 10 favorite things and then to share it with one another. You'd be surprised. Maybe there's some things that are in complete alignment, right? Yeah. You're like, man, I didn't know that was your favorite thing. And so the goal is, whatever those great memories were, if you can, relive them. To relive those moments is to bring that feeling back, that connection back. That's one of the things that couples can begin to do.
One of my greatest moments, I don't know if you are willing to allow me to relive it, but was when we got engaged.
That ain't gonna be relived.
And I thought that I was walking into a room to take pictures, and what ended up happening is that my entire family and all my friends were crowded in a room. I pull a curtain open to see who was behind the room, and everyone starts saying surprise, and I started apologizing to everyone because I was shocked, and I think my brain hadn't caught up with the fact that I knew these people. I thought I had ruined someone else's surprise. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I walked down to Sonny and was like, no, go back in there. That's your surprise. So I love surprises. Can we relive that great moment?
We can do something similar, maybe not
But you know what's cool is to actually relive a moment, and I literally felt like I was there just now, just talking about it.
Really?
And laughing. And that's the thing. There are so many moments that we share that are, inside jokes even. And if I just say a word, he gets it, and we'll start cracking up because we have these moments, we have this history. And so in the big scheme of things, when we talk about those 10 great moments or however many great moments that you have, the beauty of it is that only you have those moments. And those moments sometimes are the fuel that helps make things worth fighting for, because who will I have these moments with? Who will I have these memories with? We talked about this once before, the whole idea of those inside moments that we have and those things that we sometimes joke about with one another. And if we weren't together, if we had called it quits at some point, I would still probably think about those moments, but I would be laughing by myself because I couldn't share that moment with someone else. They weren't there.
That's so critically true. And so that's why when you're in a dark place and you're ready to throw in the towel and call it quits and just give up, you've got to bring yourself back, because the reality is, what are you thinking about? What's working in you? If you're constantly thinking about the pain and the trauma that you're going through, it will drive you to do things to get as far away from it as possible. But when you force yourself to begin to relive those moments that brought you together in the first place, and you have those conversations with your spouse, you'd be surprised how it can change and shift the trajectory of your relationship.
Now, I just want to say hello to my people. I got to do it every morning. So good morning, JD. Thanks for joining us. Zach, Jaguar, Torre, DD, Gigi, Kia, Smurf, that's a new one. Angel Taylor, good to see you. Charmaine, hello. Talisha, everybody, thank you for joining us. The names keep going on and on. Just make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to make sure that you do not miss a broadcast. And today we're talking about 10 ways to fall back in love with your spouse. And I think Hassan is ready to jump right
Let's
in.
go to number 2. Listen, take the weekend off. Now, we've talked about this concept called rituals of connection. Rituals of connection are when you take the time to play, where you take the time to connect in an amazing way. And sometimes you want to get away, because if you don't take the time to take a road trip, a weekend getaway, there's something called, I forget what it's called. I think it's when you go to a savanna, when you go 3 hours beyond where you currently live. You can get in a car and drive there. You can fly there. You can take a train there. You can take a bus there. But when you go in a different environment, it brings about a new energy and connection, because you're not in the same neighborhood, going to the same restaurant, going to the same spot that you typically do. And doing that allows you to revive and restore your relationship. And so what you want to do is, in addition to just enjoying yourself for the weekend, maybe you do a show or whatever the case may be, sometimes you want to get away into the still of the night. Sometimes you want to just wake up one morning and just see the sun rise and do all the things that allow you to connect, because what you're really tapping into is a level of intimacy in a unique and different way that you typically wouldn't have. Sometimes the best conversations, the best dialogue you can have is when there are no distractions of children and the daily routines and all of the interruptions, and that's what makes things new.
Yeah, we got a comment from Queen of Weaves. She says, good morning. This is some awesome information. I need to do this with my husband. I think we get so caught up in surviving, we forget to nurture our relationships. And that's just it. We do. We are literally in survival mode at one stage or another. We got all these different stages in our life, these seasons. When you first get married, there's the whole season of merging to become one. That's a stage that's rarely talked about. That's difficult for many, right? And then you have that season when the children come along, and there's that. Now it's like the two have become one, and now there's a third all in between it. And that can cause a lot of friction between the marriage if that's not handled well. And then all these different seasons that come along, guys, we are constantly in one survival mode after the other, but we have to make sure that we keep the principal thing. And that's he and I. We are the principal thing in this family. And our kids understand that, right? So that there's no division, there's no dividing, nobody can get in between us. When we honor the sanctity of our marriage and our couplehood and make sure that we nurture it, we keep that in-love feeling going, so that all these all these stressful circumstances that we deal with throughout the course of our marriage, we do them together.
Mm-hmm. Great point. Point number 3, what you can do to put the love back in your marriage and the passion back in is to shake up your sex schedule. Many people have been advised to schedule it, and that simply means to prioritize it, because if you don't prioritize it, then it's not going to happen because of all the duties and responsibilities and things that you have going on throughout the course of the day. Both of you are working long hours, and then you come home and you're exhausted, and it's just like, we wanted to, but it just didn't happen. And one day later turns into a week later, turns into a month later, and before you know it, man, when was the last time we came together? And so, according to many experts, they say switch up the schedule. So if it's typical that it would be in the evening, hey, how about in the morning? How about during a lunch break? How about you sneak away and do something uniquely different? Because doing it in different places at different times brings about a different connection and energy and level of fun back into the relationship. And that's what you have to do. Get out of the monotonous way of doing things, because if it's predictable and normal and we know what's going to happen before it happens, and it's the same routine, then it feels like a chore. It's like vacuuming and laundry and dishes, and here we go again. It's like, check.
Vacuuming, laundry, and dishes. That sounds depressing.
It does. It
Lord.
does. And sometimes people enter into a depressed situation. Now, when you talk to most couples, they both have a desire for more, but when you ask them what's the reality of what you're actually doing, it's far less than what they desire. And oftentimes we get in our own way. We become our own brake. We become our own block to keep us from having what we ultimately want. So getting in alignment with your spouse and talking about things and stepping outside of your frame and your box to switch things up can be actually a great thing.
Absolute.
The next point, point number 4, schedule weekly date nights. Now, we just talked about intimacy, but we're talking about dates. You know, there was a time when you were in the dating season of your relationship. We talk about the 4 seasons of a successful relationship. The dating season, committed courtship, engagement, and then marriage. But sometimes when we say I do, we stop dating. We no longer do what we did to win that spouse into the relationship in the first place. And you want to create a regular routine. So going back to the concept of rituals of connection, one of those rituals is to play, right? So that's that date night. It's the hobbies. It's the shared experiences that bring about a level of fun and connection in your relationship.
The date night part is so big. I mean, we always talk about how when we, go throughout the week, we're so busy because we work together. Hassani and I are always together, right? Mm-hmm. I'm here with him right now, but this is not quality time. This doesn't count. And a lot of times we get so busy that we discount the importance of actually setting time aside, turning off the phone and any other outside connections and zoning in on each other. Those dates make it all possible. It makes it easy for us to be together all the time because we actually turn off our work hats, turn off our parenting hats, and we are just focusing on us, whatever that might be. So it could be a fun date, a romantic date, but it's just us together focused on us.
And that really takes us to the next point that you just made, Danielle. The next point is stop talking about your kids, right? Listen, we love our kids. They're a bundle of joy. We're proud of them. They really help us, inspire us to continue to do what we love to do. Our producer over here is looking at us crazy. I don't know why she's looking at us crazy.
So one of our producers is our daughter, and she is over here side-eyeing us big time.
That's right, I said it.
But that's okay.
We don't want to talk about you right now. All right? Sometimes we need time for us. And so you're making a rule to say, you know what, tonight we're going to have fun. It's not about the kid. Because when you're talking about your kids, you're talking about the role you play in your children's life. And that is a parent. It's not about roles and responsibilities and obligations. You have to have fun. We've talked about this again and again and again. Many of us, truth be told, we've talked about the difference between your marriage and your relationship. Your marriage focuses on your partnership. Your relationship focuses on your companionship. And many of you, if I were to ask you to rate your marriage, right? Dutiful responsibilities, parenting, managing of the finances, planning for the future, you do well with that. But if I said, tell me about your relationship, right? The emotional connection, sexual fulfillment, blending of personalities, recreational companionship, you probably don't do as great in that. So most couples we have found, they're pretty good at the partnership thing. They're pretty good at the marriage thing, the parenting thing, but it's this connection thing that they need to restore. And so sometimes you've got to take the topic of children and work and projects off of the table so that you can reconnect with one another.
Absolutely. Shannon says, love on purpose, prioritize each other. Most couples do what I call PI, prioritize importance. We do what we value, raise the value on one another.
Excellent point.
Love
Appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate that. All right, our next point. Listen, this is interesting. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Let me tell you what that means. Many times people focus on the importance of having intimacy in a relationship, and intimacy comes through closeness. So when we're close to one another, physically, emotionally, that's intimacy, because intimacy is into-me-see, right? And I think there's so many couples who are so distant and far and disconnected that intimacy is an important thing. However, it is also good to create an artificial distance between you and your spouse as well, because absence makes the heart grow fonder. And sometimes, especially during the pandemic, we are so much up under each other. We're in our homes, we're trapped, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do. And the very person that you love can get on your first and your last nerves. And sometimes you just need some space and some distance. So creating...
Let the church say amen.
What are you...
I'm just saying.
What you saying?
Depending on your personality style, this is going to be exasperated or minimized, okay? Because there are some people that actually are good. So many of my clients have said, I am perfectly fine. This pandemic has been the best thing ever. I love being home. I love not having to get up and go out the house. This is great. Other people are literally clawing and scratching at the walls. They can't take it anymore. They need to get up out of here. So depending on, know yourself, like know what your needs are so that you don't start to, disintegrate as a person and take out your frustrations on your spouse. If you're the type of person that needs space and you need to get out and figure it out or do what you said earlier, a day trip, go somewhere, then make sure that happens to give you the space that you need. And I'm saying it with so much exaggeration because I'm the one that needs my space. I need autonomy. Mm-hmm. So, once in a while, throughout the day, I'm like with everybody, but at some point of the day, mm-hmm. We all recognize that I'm on E, empty. There is no more. I have no more to give. I have no more to say. I need to close the door.
Are you talking to the people or are you talking to me? Who are you talking to right now?
I'm talking
to all. Do we need to have a conversation after this show?
I'm talking to my amen committee out there who knows what I'm talking about. But then you have the other ones that really do enjoy the space. And so if you really enjoy connecting and being close, you also have to be sensitive that there is a need for some disconnect and some separation. It's just healthy for everybody to have what Hassani is calling is that artificial distance, okay? So that you can come back together and actually have new things to share and bring into the marriage.
You want your partner to miss you, and you want to miss your partner. One of the things that has helped before the pandemic is the fact that we travel. I'm busy traveling a lot. Sometimes Danielle's on the road traveling, and we get an opportunity to miss each other so that when we come back together, it's just like, it's an amazing feeling. And so you want to create that in your relationship. All right, the next one. This is important. I need you to pay attention to this because this really deals with communication, right? And as you know, communication is one of the biggest struggles that all of us have. And here's the thing. Don't try to read your spouse's mind. Mm-hmm. It will not work. And don't have the expectation that your spouse should be able to just read your mind. Well, we've been married long enough. He should know how I think and he should know No, he doesn't know. And she doesn't know. And a lot of times that's what gets us in trouble. So the breakdown of miscommunication is the result of a misunderstanding because here's the reality. Everything communicates, right? Everything communicates. So for instance, let's just say I'm engaged in a conversation with Danielle and she starts typing on a computer, or I actually sometimes do this a lot of multitasking. And so what it may communicate to her is that I'm not interested, that I have nothing that I'm trying to, provide to the conversation, and I'd rather be doing something else and rather be somewhere else. And so even though that may not be what I'm thinking and feeling on the inside, she's making an evaluation based upon how I'm showing up. And so rather than saying, what are you doing? Or what's on your mind? Or what are you thinking? She may then assume what's on my mind. And that's where we get into trouble. Assumptions are a problem when you're trying to get clarity and understanding in a relationship. So don't try to read your spouse's mind and don't allow them or don't force them to try to read yours. You've got to be able to communicate. And so there's two types of dialogue that are taking place. We have our internal dialogue and then we have our outward external dialogue with our spouses. And so when we're communicating back and forth in this relationship, clarity and understanding comes. And we're seeking to understand more so than even being understood. But when you're internalizing and only talking with yourself, that is a problem, because now think about it. You say things to your spouse, but you say something different internally, and you have two different messages going on. And somehow you think your spouse should just know. And that's the slippery slope to a bad relationship, because we have bad communication in our marriage.
Powerful.
And so that leads to the next point, and that's communicate in a new way. Now, all of you have different challenges, right? So some of you may struggle with interruptions. Some of you may struggle with screaming and shouting. Some of you may struggle with name calling. Some of you may struggle with emotionally shutting down and having nothing to say or do. There's 1,000 different ways that people struggle with communication. And yes, you can get general principles and you can read books and you can go to seminars, which you should, because the more you know about communication in general, the more it's going to help you. But you have to engage in conversation to figure out what's going wrong in the connection that you have with your partner. You know, the reality is there's something called the iceberg communication dynamic. And what that means is if you look at an iceberg, you can see the part of the ice above the sea line, but that's the smallest part of the entire process. What's larger that you don't see is the huge piece of ice that's underneath the water. And likewise, in our communication, what we see, what we experience are the words, are the tone, are the body language. But what we don't see all the time are the things that are causing us to show up in that way. We're not seeing the faulty assumptions, the misinterpretations, the past hurts that we're filtering in, the meanings that we're attaching to other people's messages, the issues that have gone unresolved that we're bringing into the conversation. And so we're wondering, well, why are you showing up like that? Why you have this energy? What's wrong with you? What's up with your face? Why you swell up all in the chest? And the why is beneath the surface. And unless we take the time to dig a little bit deeper and get to the root of the issue, we will continue to have issue after issue after issue throughout the course of our relationship. So enhance your communication. It will enhance your relationship.
You know, I think about some of our big issues were communication. I think that was the biggest issue. It was about the how things were being said and the tones and what was being perceived. And, you know, the interesting thing is that we tend to mirror our partner. So it's almost like if you're going to give it to me, I can give it to you 10 times worse. You know, it's almost like we become the reflection of our partner. So habits that you had before you or didn't have before, you might pick up. And some of those bad communication issues really are the root of the bigger issues, right? That get you stepping out on your marriage and led to an affair. It's that you had bad communication issues from the very beginning. There were issues that were talked about that went unresolved or unacknowledged or under-acknowledged. And so these things just mound up. And if we could get to that issue, if we could figure out how to talk to one another in the language that we can receive, because there's a certain way I know how to talk to Hassani to motivate him. Of course, we've been married almost 20 years. I know how to say things to shut him down too. But I'm a guardian over my words because I see Hassani as my garden. And you should see each other as gardens, as, you know, dirt bodies, as Miles Monroe calls us, right? And every word is like a seed that you sow that is going to reap not just one result or one harvest, but a whole harvest, like multiple 100-fold. So if you spewed negative words to your spouse, those things are going to come back up to haunt you, and they will be a whole load of negative responses towards you. We have to really be careful what we say. I always say that I like to be careful about what I say to my children and to my husband, because everything that I say negative, it's like I'm feeding weeds, and weeds literally choke out every garden, right? But if I speak life, if I speak to the good things that I see and the qualities that I see, now I'm growing up really healthy plants, and I'm plucking out all the weeds. And that's the power that we have with our mouths. So communication is so much bigger than, you know, being able to have a calm conversation. It's the stuff that we say that we can't take back, and we have to give account for our words. So if we don't master anything else, the root of everything is communication.
You better believe it. Wow. Great point. Two more points, guys, in terms of how to rekindle the passion, how to get your spouse to fall back in love with you. How about you go through those old photo albums and look at some of those old pictures? Like, listen, a picture is worth 1,000 words, as they say. There are memories attached to images, and that's one thing that's great about Facebook. Facebook does a great job of sending you memories on a daily basis of what you were doing 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And it's like, oh my God, I remember that time. And sometimes it's good to reminisce, because when you are trapped in the pit of your pain, you can't see beyond your current situation. But when you have reminders and cues of the way things were, of what you had experienced. You know of the possibility of what you can begin to incorporate into that relationship again. And so we encourage you to do that. Go through those photo albums, begin to connect, do it with your partner, make it a date night, right? Sit in front of the fireplace and dim lights and just go through those photos. I think it'll be an amazing experience for you. And the last thing is, and this is powerful, a lot of times when we're counseling people, this is what we do. We point the finger. We point the finger at our spouse, blaming our spouse for why things aren't going well, what they're not doing, how they're not showing up. Here's a great tip, the best one to leave you with. Mirror what's missing. So if your spouse isn't being loving, love your spouse. If your spouse doesn't know how to communicate right with your spouse. Be the example. Be the model that your spouse can now mirror. Does that make sense? And so you're demonstrating for them how they need to show up in that relationship. And so it's not just about what they're not doing and you need to do this, but what about you? What you doing? And that becomes the tit for tat back and forth. You want to rob them of any excuse that they can come up with to say why you're not showing up the right way. So you want to lead by example and mirror what is missing so that they can then mirror what you have modeled. That's the key. That's the key, because a relationship is a two-way street. Both of you have to show up to it. And when you do that, that can cause a shift and a change. Listen, there's so many comments coming in, but we're reaching the end of our show. Listen, before we go, yes, you can watch this again and again and again. And a simple way of doing that is go to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can see the playlist of all 120 of the shows that we've done since we've started. You can even like the Facebook page here. And if you scroll down on the page, you'll see all of the shows that we've done. And we encourage you to share it with others. We encourage you to push this information out because there's so many people who are in need of help and just don't know what to do. And sometimes one word of inspiration can help change and transform their life. So guys, that is our show. I hope you enjoyed it today. It was an amazing experience for me. Hope it was for you. We're going to see you tomorrow for another great episode. And we love you and see you then. Take care.
If you would like to be a guest on our show, or if you're interested in one of our restoration programs, contact us today at couplesacademy.org.